Still fighting Israel's outside enemies on multiple fronts, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu woke up on Monday to a new political battlefield at home. The departure this weekend of Benny Gantz and his centrist National Unity Party from Israel's emergency wartime government is unlikely to immediately sever Mr. Netanyahu's grip on power. The Prime Minister's governing coalition still commands a narrow majority of 64 seats in the 120-seat parliament. But Mr. Gantz's move means that Mr. Netanyahu is now totally dependent on his far-right and ultra-Orthodox coalition partners as he prosecutes the war in Gaza in the face of mounting international opprobrium, leaving him increasingly isolated and exposed at home and abroad. Mr. Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, another powerful member of National Unity, also left Mr. Netanyahu's small war cabinet. They are both former military chiefs who were widely viewed as key voices of moderation in the five-member body, which was formed in October after the Hamas-led assault on Israel prompted the Israeli bombardment and ground invasion of Gaza. The two centrist politicians raised public confidence in the government's decision-making process at a time of national trauma. They also lent the war cabinet an aura of legitimacy and consensus as Israel fought Hamas in Gaza, as well as its archenemy Iran and its other proxies, including the powerful Hezbollah militia across Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Mr. Gantz accused Mr. Netanyahu of political procrastination, suggesting that he had been putting off critical strategic decisions to ensure his political survival. His decision to quit the wartime government ushers in a new period of political instability and left many Israelis wondering where the country goes from here. Describing the political shakeup as incredibly consequential, Yohanan Plessner, president of the Israel Democracy Institute, a nonpartisan research group in Jerusalem, said in a statement that Israelis had already been giving low grades to the government on a host of wartime issues. That included the handling of the fighting and relations with the United States, Israel's crucial ally, he said. With Gantz's absence, I expect those grades to become even lower, Mr. Plessner said. Mr. Gantz had issued an ultimatum 3 weeks ago, warning Mr. Netanyahu that he would break up the emergency government unless the prime minister came up with clear plans, including who would replace Hamas as the ruler of a post-war Gaza and how to bring back the scores of hostages still being held in the Palestinian enclave. Mr. Gantz joined the government last October to foster a sense of unity at a time of crisis. He joined forces with his political rival, Mr. Netanyahu, despite a deep lack of trust between the two and a history of betrayal. The last time Mr. Gantz went into a government with Mr. Netanyahu, in 2020, it also ended badly after Mr. Netanyahu broke their power-sharing agreement. The influence of Mr. Gantz and Mr. Eisenkot, whose son, a soldier, was killed in December while fighting in Gaza, has waned in recent months, leading many Israelis to ask why they hadn't left the emergency government and joined the opposition earlier. Mr. Gantz has called for early elections this fall. Mr. Netanyahu's formal partners remaining in the war cabinet are his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, a rival within their conservative Likud party whom Mr. Netanyahu tried to fire last year, and Ron Dermer, a seasoned Netanyahu confidant with more diplomatic than political experience. It is unclear if it will continue to function. A separate and broader security cabinet includes two ultranationalist party leaders, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Minister for National Security, and Bezalel Smotrich, the Finance Minister. Both want to resettle Gaza with Israelis. Mr. Ben-Gvir and Mr. Smotrich have both vowed to bring down Mr. Netanyahu's government if he proceeds with an Israeli proposal for a deal involving a truce and a swap of hostages for Palestinian prisoners, which, as outlined by President Biden over a week ago, would effectively wind down the war. A day after the Israeli military rescued for hostages held by Hamas militants in Nuseirat, Gazans described an intense bombardment during the raid, followed by chaos in the streets from an operation that killed and wounded scores of Palestinians. Bayan Abu Amr, 32, was carrying her 18-month-old son Mohammed on the edge of Nuseirat's main marketplace on Saturday when she was surrounded by the heavy booms of strikes from aircraft, which Israel's military said targeted militants in an effort to ensure the safe extraction of the hostages and special forces. People were rushing like the Day of Judgment. I did not know where to run, said Ms. Abu Amr, who was on her way to pay a condolence call to her uncle's family after 2 of his sons had died. Kids were screaming. Women were falling down while running. Along with other Gazans, she managed to clamber onto a passing pickup truck that was trying to ferry people safely out amid the strikes, she recalled. One girl was separated from her mother in the confusion, while an old man lost his grip and fell off the truck onto the ground, she said. Ms. Abu Amr finally arrived home with her son hours later, shocked that she was still alive. I won't take my son out of the house again, she said. To rescue the hostages, Israeli troops entered to residential buildings in which they were being held, according to Rear ADM Daniel Hagari, the Israeli military spokesman. Admiral Hagari said there were families living in the apartments, as well as armed Hamas militants guarding the hostages, making it impossible to reach them without harming the civilians of Gaza. The precise death toll remained unclear as health officials sought to gather statistics amid chaotic scenes at hospitals. Gazan health officials reported that more than 200 people were killed in the raid. The Israeli military said it was aware of fewer than 100 casualties, without specifying whether these were dead or wounded or both. Neither side provided a breakdown of combatants versus civilians. On Sunday, the corridors and hallways of the last major medical center in central Gaza, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, remained densely crowded with new patients. After more than 100 dead bodies had been brought there on Saturday, said Khalil Dakran, a hospital official. Most of the bodies had since been buried or claimed by relatives, he added. The medical facility, already packed before the Israeli rescue mission in nearby Nuseirat, overflowed, said Abdel Karim Al-Harazin, 28, a physician working there. Editors pick Strasbourg for book lovers. The secret to eating healthy all week. Maya Hawk doesn't want to let the vibe die. The bombing was unimaginably intense, said Dr. Al-Harazin. The whole hospital became one giant emergency room, even as people came looking for their dead relatives. When Al-Aqsa became overwhelmed, many of the wounded were sent to a nearby field hospital operated by the International Medical Corps, according to Javed Ali, an official with the aid group. Diana Abu Shaban, 28, first heard gunfire as she was about to hang laundry near the tent where she was sheltering in Nuseirat. As the assault escalated, she told her daughters to hide before realizing that the frail tent could not protect them. Gathering her children, she sprinted to the nearby Al-Aqsa Medical Center in a desperate search for safety. She said her husband, Saeed, had left earlier that morning for the market, where Palestinian residents said the strikes were particularly intense. I heard lots and lots of missiles, Ms. Abu Shaban said. I thought my husband would be killed or injured. After 2 hours, the bombing died down and she and her children left the hospital, she said. Later, they discovered that her husband had survived by hiding in a nearby shop. Abd al-Rahman Bassem al-Masri, 25, who lives on the northern edge of Deir al-Balah, said Saturday had been the worst day he'd witnessed since the start of the war. Mr. al-Masri said his mother and his younger brother had driven back from his uncle's house and were approaching their home when an airstrike pounded into the ground beside it. In a video shot by a friend who was also in the car, an expanding cloud of smoke can be seen rising behind the building. In that moment, I lost hope that we can continue to live here, Mr. al-Masri said. Another Gazan who lives in Nuseirat, who spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of retribution, said he and more than 10 family members hid inside for hours as heavy airstrikes rattled the neighborhood. He said he had no idea hostages had been held in the area. After the bombing subsided, he headed out into the devastated market area, where he said he saw the street covered in blood and bodies. Gazans there were cursing not just Israel, but Hamas as well, he said, blaming them for bringing this disaster upon them. He said neither Israel or Hamas cared about the destruction as they sought to attack one another. Everyday people, he added, were the victims.